Welcome to Live from Love is Murder, where we're in Chicago talking with authors and other notables at the 2008 Love is Murder conference currently underway. I'm Earl Merkel, your host for Live from Love is Murder. Now, Love is Murder has become one of the premier literary gatherings in the United States, and nobody here typifies the kind of talent that we've got more than our next guest, and that's author Rob Walker, whose current novel, City of the Absent, is back and running well. This is your third in that series, isn't it, Rob?
Yes, it follows the City for Ransom and Shadows in the White City. It's a trilogy, actually. It was conceived as a trilogy. May go to a fourth book, I'm not sure.
I hope so, because I love Inspector Ransom. I mean, this is a guy who's archetypal Chicago in a historical setting, a historical context. And I got to tell you, the way that you nailed that period of time. Well, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I appreciate that. The research is hopefully evidenced in the book. I worked with a local fellow who ran the book exchange in Evanston, and he put me onto the right books to read. And I didn't leave his store until it was $300 later.
And that explains a lot about that.
So I created my own Chicago history library, and some of the best Chicago history being written, this guy pulled off the shelf for me. He after I explained to him precisely what I wanted to do, which was to go over the time period from spring to fall of the World's Fair, and everything that's a backdrop for the entire episodic story that continues from cliffhanger to cliffhanger. And I was pleased to work with Keenan Heiss. Some folks listening may remember him. He had a column in the. He worked for the Tribune, and he ran this bookstore out in Evanston, the Book Exchange. It was all Chicago history. The entire bookstore was Chicago history.
Well, you love Chicago. I know you came from here.
Yeah, I grew up here. Born in Corinth, Mississippi. Mom's from Tuskegee, Alabama. So
worked your way back up. But what neighborhood are you from in Chicago? Because we're a city of neighborhoods here.
Yeah, Loomis and Jackson. You remember? This doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, not anymore, but I know the area where.
The last time I was in a cab, and I said, John, why don't you go over a couple of blocks of Jackson, and I'll take a look at the old neighborhood. It was gone.
Completely leveled. A lot of bricks on the ground there.
Yeah,
you're out in West Virginia right now. You're an academic. How did that happen?
Actually, I graduated from Northwestern with a master's to teach in English. That was supposedly going to keep food on the table while I pursued a writing career. I had a smart English teacher in high school at Wells High School who urged me, yeah, write, but get a job.
Something to fall back on a day job.
I enjoy teaching, and I love to teach creative writing, but I've had to teach developmental writing and writing to people that are reluctant. I call reluctant writers. They really have struggle just creating a paragraph.
Oh. I've got to say that the day job can't be lasting too much longer, because you're getting a lot of recognition about your current works. Now, I understand...
I'm pretty close to retirement age, too.
Yeah, well, and that's a secondary. But I understand the Chicago Tribune was awfully nice to you recently.
People at the conference are asking me how much I paid the guy.
Well, tell us about that.
I think the lovely line is that he compares me to Twain, Twain is my mentor, my spiritual mentor. First book I ever wrote was a book that was supposedly the sequel to Huckleberry Finn. I was incensed that there was no sequel to Huckleberry Finn, so I've been writing series ever since. Series characters. So he compared me to Twain's witticism and Dickens' social concerns and the ghoulishness of Edgar Allan Poe, which that's great company.
I've got to tell you, it's an unholy alliance that you've got going there. Not bad at all.
I like that unholy alliance.
But you've written in just about every genre I can think of. The paranormal stuff. I mean, I remember what was that one called?
The Psi Blue, PSI Blue.
Marvelous book.
Instead of CSI, PSI.
PSI Blue, the marvelous book. I mean,
yeah, the sequel actually has a haunted trailer in West Virginia.
Oh, okay. And for those not, that's where Rob's out of these days, West Virginia.
Yeah, I married and moved to West Virginia.
Now, let me ask you this question, because about a year ago, almost exactly, at the 2007 Love is Murder conference, You showed up on the first night. Did you ever get to the registration table?
I was gung ho. Actually, I did my first panel.
Oh, okay.
Before I fell out. And,
what happened?
I had blood clots in the legs that moved up to the lungs, and I'm told that it was massive blood clots. And fortunately, my wife's a registered nurse, and a lot of people here at the conference, a librarian friend of mine, walked me over to a male nurse who was here speaking, and Dr. He diagnosed 3 possibilities, and all of them were horrendous.
Oh, good.
So I said, well, okay, I'm convinced I'm going to go there. So I wound up in Resurrection Hospital.
Oh.
And still paying for the bills.
I imagine so. Most writers would be. Did you ever ask for a second opinion, though, from this highly optimistic on-site doctor here?
Man, he's very good.
Was he?
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that, because anytime somebody tells me I have 3 possibilities and all of them are really bad, I tend to look for another source to hit on. But that's just me, maybe.
Well, one well-meaning person urged me to go see her. Was those back doctor, chiropractor, you know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, straighten you right out, you know?
Yeah, chiropractor does really good for blood clots. Let's get away from the medical side, unless you've got a new medical mystery.
I'm doing fine now.
No, I'm glad to hear that, because here you are sitting, and who knows?
Yeah, I think there are so many rats in my ancestry that the rat poison is good for me.
That's what you're taking, right? The anticoagulant thing.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be careful not to cut you or whatever we got to. You're a legend among writers, often because of the generosity with which you provide advice to them about what they're going through.
I never forgot how difficult it was for me to get advice. And I wrote to 10 best-selling authors at one time, and I got a hurried phone call from Dick Francis. He was between continents. I wasn't sure if he said continents or continents. But,
yes, the continental way of saying that.
But I was like blown over that he took the time to give me a phone call, which basically said he didn't have time to talk to me, but he was nice, very nice about it. And the only other author in that stellar list that I wrote to, all best-selling authors, was Dean Koontz. And Dean Koontz wrote me a 6-7-page letter that gave me some real practical advice, which was what I was asking for. How do you stay in this business? How do you feed your family, the dog? How do you keep food on the table and still maintain your sanity and so forth? And he gave me a lot of advice. First advice was to move into mainstream thriller, suspense, and crime novels, because he felt I had a penchant for that. He'd read some of my horror novels, and I always combined horror with the police procedural at the same time. And that was one of my early problems, was nobody knew where to put me. And as a young writer, you're struggling to find your voice. And once you hit it, then it becomes so much easier. It's like you turn a corner.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of time. Any profession takes 4 years to get a degree in this profession. That in writing, if you put yourself into your self-universe, you write for 4 years before you even begin to think about publication and sending, and so you kind of work your own PhD program in writing. But it's just work the craft before you start thinking about trying to sell anything.
So the commercial next. I mean, the advice always seems to be so straightforward. Write a good book first. Then you try to do everything else. Is that essentially the case? Yeah.
And I'm the worst for it, because I sent out shotgun stuff when I was young. I would send out like 50 parcels of different stories and different, and a lot of it wasn't ready for anyone's vision or sight.
Well, this Huckleberry Finn thing you wrote, you were what, 17? How old were you when you?
I was a sophomore in high school when I began and finished it my junior year.
Now, have you ever thought about doing Huckleberry Finn as a paranormal suspense?
Yeah, that's good.
And there's a lot of characters in there. You got Pap and 2 guys looking at their own funeral. Maybe this time Huck and Tom could be looking at their own funeral.
What I love about Twain is he could make you laugh and cry in the same paragraph. He could evoke so much emotion from you. And so I would sit down and study. How did he make me feel? How did he get to me like that? How did he do that? And I do the same thing with Dean Koontz. When I read something and it really moves me, I go back and I reread it several times. How did he do that?
You can't do better than analyzing the masters and seeing what you can borrow or steal and what you can improve upon.
Yeah,
So
I'm stealing currently from Elmer Leonard. Maybe I'll...
Oh, but that'll be the petty theft because he's also so sparse, leaving out the stuff people skip over.
Yeah.
What's Rob Walker working on right now?
Actually, I'm working on a variety of projects. I'm trying to find something that hits with an editor, publisher, and searching for an inroad. I've got something called the Dirty Old Harry Squad, which is like 4 detectives, retired. They're called back into service to do cold case files. They only do one case at a time, and they concentrate on it. And this is actually happening in police enforcement right now, law enforcement.
Really?
A lot of it makes sense, because these guys are the experts. And one of them's a female, and one is a black detective. The other is Irish cop, and the other one is a Polish cop. It's all Chicago. It's set in Chicago.
Pure Chicago again.
Yeah, the main character is George Detwilder Wisniewski, and they call him GD Wiz.
Pure Chicago again. Well, we're just about out of time for the interview, but let me say, the author is Rob Walker, and you could not do better than visiting a bookstore and buying everything with this guy's name on it, and that includes the trilogy, the Ransom trilogy. I got to tell you, Rob, those books are killers.
I feel like they're the books that everything's built up to. These are the books that I was meant to write from the beginning, but I didn't have the craft yet.
Well, they may have been built up, but there's more better coming. I know it.
Thank you.
Thanks for visiting with us.
Thank you.
We'll be back shortly with another great guest on Live from Love is Murder, coming to you from the 2008 Love is Murder Conference in Chicago.